Amazon's The Rings of Power. Red Star. So, there's been a bit of a backlash with the coming TV show. There's also been a few people that have been coming to the defense of the show too. Now, a lot of the discrepancies that people have aren't toxic or regarded as racist, as many people would state they are. It just goes on the lines of looking at what we have with the stories that were published by Tolkien and Peter Jackson trilogy that we saw. Now, to make reference to the Peter Jackson trilogy is generally because Peter Jackson wanted to stay faithful to Tolkien as much as possible. He said this in multiple interviews as well as in the appendices of his films. It wasn't about putting the message of how the world was in that time, but putting through Tolkien's message and putting through his story first and foremost. Now, we don't know much about the TV series as it's not out yet, but fans of this world that Lord of the Rings is set in have a right to be concerned. Our concerns were met a few months ago when the Vanity Fair article for The Rings of Power came out. And in this article, it states who's going to be in it, including Galadriel, including Elrond. But other than that, a lot of new original characters for the show. On top of that, they stated that hobbits will be a thing within this show. Now, the problem being, this show is set within the Second Age. And Second Age generally doesn't record any hobbits being around. Now, that's not to say they weren't around, but that they weren't prominent enough to be outlined within the stories of the Second Age. And that's why things get a bit murky. In the Vanity Fair article, it stated that Galadriel is obviously 1,000 years younger, if a bit more, than she is in the Third Age and as we see her in Lord of the Rings. Now that is true, but she's also thousands of years old too. This is the Second Age, and Galadriel was born within the First Age, and is one of the first elves of Middle-earth. He's what's called an Eldar, which means children of the stars, or something along those lines, because she was born before the sun and the moon. She has lived quite a life up to the point when you'll see her in the Second Age. This life includes living in Valinor for a time, and then making the treacherous journey through the Helcaraxy with a couple of with a host of other elves, including her family, her brothers, her uncle, cousins, things like that. And they lose a few people along the way. They lose a few elves. It's a very treacherous journey to get to Middle-earth from Valinor. After that, she lives here and there. She eventually meets her husband within that age, his name is Celeborn. And within the First Age, she also loses her brothers, her uncles, her cousins, and a lot of her friends to basically an evil god. Now, she lives in a region of Middle-earth that this evil god inhabits as well. And eventually the evil god gets defeated by men and elves and dwarves that are there. But on doing so, it destroys that land. Or that land gets destroyed due to Morgoth. And so it doesn't rise again. And so that land that she lived on for a while is gone forever, lost to the sea. And she has to travel east further into Middle-earth. This marks the end of the first age and the founding of the world, and the start of the second age. Now, speculation. Galadriel will be feeling a hell of a lot of emotions. Sadness mainly, but also relief that a god, an evil god, has been defeated. And they don't have to worry about, that god resurfacing anymore. Obviously the eminence from the god is still out and about. And Galadriel knows this. And a lot of other elves know this. And so keep a watchful eye on Middle-earth thereafter. But it seems like, from the stories that are set around Galadriel, she isn't really one to hold on to the fight. She's there to help Middle-earth, yes. But in the time of the Second Age, she is with Celeborn and she wanders around Middle-earth trying to find a home. And she also has her daughter, Celebrian, at the time as well. So generally her focus would be to find peace with Middle-earth, because Second Age in general, a lot of it would be peaceful. There'll be peaceful times where they can live in security, knowing that evil has been defeated, or held at bay at least. So the article states that Galadriel in the Second Age would be younger. She is of elves age differently to humans, so she is much younger than she would be in the Third Age. But that she's full of anger and piss and vinegar, things like that. This wouldn't be the case because she's already lived an age that's centuries. She's a few centuries old by now, and thus she would be very wise and not quick to anger and not full of piss and vinegar. She would be Galadriel as we know her. And that's what the biggest reference that we have here is that, yes, in the stories, Galadriel is seen as a fighter, but she's also Galadriel. And this is very much shown when she's talking to Frodo about the ring. About if she had it, you would see a queen, strong and powerful as the sea, and all that. Love and fear. But she doesn't, because she's Lady Galadriel. She's soft, elegant. People fight for her and would die on the sword for her because of who she is. If she changed into an angry, rage-filled elf that wanted to kill evil, I don't think she'll have the respect of her fellow elves, men and dwarves that see her as this symbol. The symbol of peace and tranquility within Middle-earth, and something that they want to fight for. Going further on into the article, they state the reason for why they put hobbits in there. And the main reasons are generally because they state people won't know that this is Middle-earth, that this is Tolkien's world, without hobbits being introduced within it. Now, that generally states that they don't really have faith within the story that they're trying to portray here, with the original characters that they are showing, and everything else in between. It's mainly made up. This is because they state that there's not much going on within the Second Age, so they can play around with it a bit. But that's not the case, and a lot of fans see this, and they know this, and it's not very hard to understand that there are certain events within the Second Age that people will love to see. And you can work around that 10 times better than creating stories, creating original stories, that won't really fit within what fans want to see within a Second Age Middle-earth story. And to shoehorn hobbits in there, it generally means that you didn't have faith in telling a Lord of the Rings story without them. Even though establishing the world and establishing stories that Tolkien creates a really, really fantastic world that people can get lost in, regardless of it being connected to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and the hobbits within them series. So that kind of drives people's concerns. The third thing, and what was called the ire of some supporters, is that there's original characters, and within them original characters there's been race swaps and colour changes. And a lot of supporters of the series would state that if you have folly with this issue, it's generally because it's cemented in racism. And it's not. You can speak to a lot of fans of Tolkien's work, and they will state that they will be in full support of certain coloured people being in Lord of the Rings. And this has been stated on like TikTok and whatnot, that there is coloured people in Middle-earth. We know this. The Haradrim are of darker colour. There is, there's Easterlings, there's the people that live in Rune. There is an expanded universe in Middle-earth. And you can use them characters, and people would love to see them characters more and more explored. But they're not. What they're doing is changing established characters, or established races, and shoehorning a coloured card in there. And we know why. This is the thing. This is why it's not really cemented within racism. It's cemented in the context of what this series is trying to push out there. And the article also goes into that and kind of proves our concerns with the characters and with the story that they're trying to tell. And that is that, as quoted, they are trying to do the novel that Tolkien never wrote. Now, this sounds clever, but it also sounds disingenuous to what people want. They don't want you to write a novel that Tolkien never wrote. Tolkien is a very, very good linguist and writer. His stories are known worldwide as basically the grandfather of fantasy. There's nothing really that was wrong with his stories that can't be told. So to state that you're writing a story that Tolkien never wrote, then why do people want to watch that? They don't want to watch the story that Tolkien never wrote. They want to watch the story that Tolkien wrote. And that's basically the message I want to state to, whoever who's in support of this Amazon series. So I know there is a lot of fans of Tolkien's world that want more Tolkien, and I understand that, and I want more Tolkien. But I want it to actually involve his work. Giving me Galadriel and Elrond, and not even Elrond or Galadriel that I know of, and would imagine from the stories, and giving me their interpretation of a nowadays Galadriel or nowadays Elrond or a Middle Earth that's set in 2022 is ludicrous. I don't want that. I want to escape into that world. I want to see Galadriel as this elegant elf, kind of living her life, telling the stories of her family and her friends and her powers. So, if you allocate that Galadriel is a fighter and she has fought in battles, and she was responsible for destroying the fortress of Dol Guldur in Mirkwood. Now, people state that it's not all about magic, otherwise you would see Gandalf, using fireballs and decimating orcs left, right and centre. But there is magic there. Within the Silmarillion, Finrod, Galadriel's brother, has a fight with Sauron. And instead of using swords, or might, or anything like that, they have a battle of song. Yes, Finrod nearly defeats Sauron by singing to him. It's only a matter of fact that Sauron outsings him that he doesn't defeat him. So yes, there is magic that Galadriel uses because she is the same family. She could probably defeat armies by doing certain things rather than slicing them up. But she could have sliced them up too. It's interpretation after all. But to say that she's going in Joan of Arc style is very much a reach. Galadriel wouldn't have done that. I know that's just a personal take. But if you talk to people and know what they want from Galadriel, they can see that that's not her and that's not in her character to kind of go in rage-filled. She would be wise and systematic. Just like her husband, Celeborn, who is known to be wise and, well, the wisest of elves. And thus, this is what the problem is that fans see the writing on the wall. There's a message there, and there's also been, after the Vanity Fair and showing off the trailer, people were, again, their concerns were highlighted. All these people, all these original characters, story that makes no sense, were all highlighted within just this teaser trailer. Why is Galadriel looking like Lara Croft? Scraping on a waterfall. Who's this random elf that has no hair and who's a different colour? Who's this singing dwarf lady that has no beard? And again, the colorisation of her makes zero sense within the context and lore of the world. After that, Amazon pumped out what was called superfan reactions. These people, and some of them have been unlisted or taken off or deleted or whatever from Amazon, but these superfans weren't actually superfans. And some of them didn't even understand the story they was even going to watch when they watch the teaser trailer. Why did they do that? Why did they not invite fans of the actual world to come view this teaser trailer before anyone else? Is it because they wanted more of a scripted reaction? That's what it seems like. And one of the reactions that was portrayed was on the ideology of women empowerment, of having basically a political dialogue within a story that's meant to be escapism. That's not what we want to see. We want to see a fantasy. We want to take ourselves out of reality, not place ourselves firmly within it with these stories. And that's what's really jarring about being a fan and seeing that there's people that are like, let's give it a chance. I will give it a chance. One episode. But to put the metaphorical nail in the coffin, the Amazon TV series is going to be released on the 2nd of September, the day of Tolkien's death. They could have picked any other day, but they picked that one. And that just shows basically the symbolism of this show. That's all I really have to say about the Amazon TV show. Will we get great Lord of the Rings stuff? Hopefully. And this War of the Rohirrim animation looks very interesting and has much more interest than this Amazon TV series at this moment. So we'll see how that goes. Until next time, thanks for watching.